We don't need any mic checks on this one. We've started recording. Welcome to Brand X Reviews. Here we are with the core.
Yes.
So, Clint Eastwood turned 95 on Saturday. And I did a video.
Yes.
He did. So I did a video talking about just his filmography, showing off my DVD and Blu-ray collection. And I mentioned Dirty Harry as something that we were going to talk about. We were going to do a video about this last year, weren't we? Because you watched all the films last year from memory, is that right?
It'd been last year or earlier this year, I can't remember. But yeah, I watched them like fairly recently.
Yeah. Because I usually watch them every 2 years. And I also watch the Death Wish movies every 2 years. And it'll be like the year that I'm watching the Death Wish films won't be the year I'm watching the Dirty Harry films, so I kind of rotate it. And there is a bit of a kind of parallel between the two film series, and we'll get into that a little bit. But this video, we're going to talk about the Dirty Harry movies. The next video, we're going to talk about the Death Wish movies with Charles Bronson. Star Charles Bronson. I don't have Charles Bronson for the video. I have the core. So, right, my Skype thing's just moving, so I'll just sort that out. Right, anyway, so you didn't need to know that. So the Dirty Harry movies, there's 5 of them. The original one got a 4K re-release. I strongly recommend this. It's a very good picture, as you would expect from 4K. It's not always the case, but this one is a very nice one, and I'd heard good things and I wasn't disappointed. They've only done a re-release of Dirty Harry, not the other 4 films, but to be clear, the movies, because some people get confused with which films are Dirty Harry movies, because it was kind of a trope that Clint Eastwood played, similar to like how Bruce Willis kind of played the John McClane type character a few times, like with Striking Distance and Last Boy Scout, kind of John McClane type characters. Clint Eastwood played Dirty Harry type characters in other films like Tightrope, The Rookie, The Gauntlet. But none of those are actually Dirty Harry movies. The ones in the franchise, obviously, the first one, Dirty Harry, 1971. I'm totally going off the top of my head here. Magnum Force, 1973, I think. The Enforcer, 1976. Sudden Impact, 1983. And The Deadpool, 3 words, not Deadpool, The Deadpool, in 1988, I think. So we'll talk about each film individually.
Where they're looking into the absolute immorality of betting on like which celebrity's going to die next.
Oh yeah, we would never do that.
I can't think of anybody who would do that.
Yeah, we would never do that at Brand X Reviews. Yeah, that's something that we do. I don't really do that at Brand X Reviews. It's more on my personal social media. But yeah, that is a thing anyway, every New Year's Eve. So the first film, Dirty Harry. What's interesting about these movies... Someone's moving behind me. What's interesting about these movies is how... not so much the fifth entry, the Deadpool, but the first 4 films seem to kind of flip things a little bit. So the way I've heard this be described is that number 1 and number 3 have a kind of right-wing bias, as in old 1970s version of right-wing, left-wing. Whereas...
Yeah, before it was like anything even slightly less of a left of fucking Stalin is like, fucking far right, like, or just normal, like that is an option.
Exactly. Whereas the second and fourth film have a bit more of a sort of left-wing angle. So back in the day, like anti-authoritarianism was kind of seen in that way as left-wing. I don't buy that. I kind of disagree with that, but I get that as a perception. That's kind of the way it's been said. But it is interesting because you can see where the people that have said that are coming from, because the first film, it's about putting away a really bad serial killer, in effect, and having to go beyond what the system, as a police officer, beyond what the system would allow you to do in order to stop the guy, and in some cases rescue hostages and so on. But in doing so, he breaks their civil rights, and from a legal point of view, that jeopardizes the actual case. So initially, he doesn't kill the Scorpio killer. He just captures him and arrests him. But they can't take it to trial because of the methods that he used in extreme circumstances, because somebody was dying and he had to get to this guy before this person died. He ended up failing. But the methods that he used, he ended up obtaining evidence without a search warrant and so on, so that evidence was inadmissible. So even though they know this guy's done it, he's practically admitted it, they can't take the case forward. So the guy walks, basically. And it's an understandable frustration because Dirty Harry's like saying, well, the system is crazy kind of thing. You would think that he would know that, but obviously they kind of, as a police officer, but what the guy's rights are and so on. But at the same time, the audience doesn't know that, so there's a little bit of Dirty Harry's character having to play it kind of dumb for the audience. That's the writers kind of. I don't fault them for that.
Yes.
So yeah, that was kind of the debate in that one, and this might be something that we think is a current thing. A lot of the things in each movie, including the Death Wish movies, a lot of the kind of conversation starters that are in these movies are things that are very relevant today still, and a lot of people today that maybe don't watch older movies or aren't as old to remember it will think that a lot of the issues that we're facing nowadays are like current new issues, when like really they're not. You watch these movies, they're as relevant now, if not more so, I suppose. In the way that it's presented in the movie, more relevant now. So, any thoughts on that first film?
It's kind of interesting because it basically kind of ends with him like throwing away his badge kind of thing, and it's like very much like he's stopping being a cop after this.
Yeah, there was an element of that. I don't know if they anticipated doing a sequel at that point, but yeah. So the sequel, Magnum Force, that was 2 years later, and they kind of flipped things a little bit because in that one, it's actually police officers going beyond, kind of doing what Dirty Harry did, going beyond the system in order to dispatch because they're killing them. They're not just obtaining evidence without a warrant; they're actually going out as a hit squad and executing people that they have deemed as being guilty. I mean, the people that they do kill are pretty much that they do deserve, but they've basically beat the system. You've got like a corrupt politician at the beginning of the film who's got away with it and got away with being corrupt, and then one of these police officers goes out and just shoots them down. There's a pimp who's killed this woman in the back of a taxi. He just gets shot. Stuff like that. So Dirty Harry's like investigating all these murders of very nasty people that pretty much deserve to die, but that's not the legal way. And as a police officer, he's got a responsibility. And he figures out who's doing it. And they even have that conversation with him where they say, you know, we thought that you would be on our side. Because Dirty Harry, this is what he was doing, maybe not as extreme, but in that first film. And he just says to him, it appears that you've misunderestimated me. So he's kind of looking through the same argument as the first film, but from the other side, which is quite interesting. I don't know if that was maybe done as an if they took that angle, maybe so much because of the criticism that the first film got, or if that was part of the reason why they went in that direction. Any thoughts on Magnum Force?
Well, a turf has got to know his limitations.
Yeah, so The Enforcer, that's the third film. That's one, again, where we're kind of back to what they were doing in the first film, so kind of cutting corners to get things done and so on. It's a bit more of a mixed film, is this one. It's not quite as good as the first two, but it's still very good. All films, I love all these films. But again, that one is to do with a kind of new age, kind of hippie, anti-establishment gang that have a plot, and they manage to get hold of loads of like really bad military grade weapons and kidnap the mayor and so on. And the third one has an interesting thing in it. I'll insert a clip in a moment, but where there's a female police officer who has been put in that role because she is a female and they need more women in there, and Clint Eastwood's got an issue with that. Not necessarily because she's a woman, but because she's so inexperienced, because he picks her up on, you know, what's your most important misdemeanor arrest? And she's like, I've never made a misdemeanor arrest. What's your most important felony arrest? And she's kind of embarrassed, says, I've never made a felony arrest. He says, well, why do you have the right to, you know, to put other people's lives on the line, including your partner? In fact, I'll insert the clip here for that 1 second.
Well, Officer Moore, maybe you'll tell us all here about your most important felony arrest.
I've never made a felony arrest.
Well, maybe you'll tell us about your best misdemeanor arrest then.
I've never made a misdemeanor arrest either.
Then what the hell gives you the right to become an inspector when there's men have been out there on the street for 10 or 15 years?
The woman's place is in the home. Is that what you're trying to say?
What do you think this is, some kind of encounter group? I want to know what Officer Moore is going to do when somebody points a gun at her and says, "Hit the deck, you son of a
You're
bitch!"
just deliberately trying to fail this candidate, aren't you, Callahan?
Well, if she fails out there, she gets her ass blown off.
It's my ass. And, my hard luck.
Except that out there, you're going to have a partner. And if you get blown away, he gets blown away with you. And that's a hell of a price to pay for being stylish.
So, obviously that's something that continues today with the whole DEI agenda, with regards to putting minority groups into roles because they are minority groups above and over merit and skill and experience, which when you're talking about very important life-saving jobs like rescue workers, firemen, the ability to carry somebody over your shoulder, having like physical strength and so on, putting somebody who's inexperienced in that job or maybe not even as physically capable to tick a box because of diversity and inclusion has its risks, has its drawbacks. And there's an element of common sense that we've thrown away, and we're not allowed to say these things lest we face the wrath of the woke brigade. Well, it's becoming less of an issue in recent times, thankfully. But this was a conversation that was in that film. I mean, what was good about the film is she as a female character, she doesn't have to redeem herself. She's a person, she's a human being, but she's inexperienced. So on that level, in terms of an inexperienced person going into a very dangerous job, redeems herself because she's very good at her job. She's very brave as well, and she ends up losing her life in an act of heroic bravery, pretty much to save Dirty Harry's life. So it's swings and roundabouts, this conversation. Again, this is always something that you can take different angles on. And the movies do acknowledge that as well, and it's very intelligently done. So any thoughts on The Enforcer?
I think you've pretty much covered everything there.
Yeah.
Like, good showdown at Alcatraz at the end.
Yes, yeah.
But it's a bit weird. There's no real bad guys in... Oh, wait, no, that's another film, isn't it?
Yeah, that's The Rock. So, Sudden Impact, that's the fourth film. That's got wasn't his wife. I've thought in the past, I always misremember, you always think that those two were married, because Clint Eastwood put Sandra Locke, the actress, in loads of his films, and they were together for quite a long time. And she's quite good in this one, to be fair. She's like a rape victim, and similar to the second movie, she's out on the warpath, obviously, and she's assassinating all the people that assaulted her and her sister when they were younger and getting revenge on them. So it's fairly simple plot, that one, but again, it's kind of going back to the themes of the first one in a way, because somebody doing that is the villain, even though she's the victim and you're fully behind what she's doing, you're rooting for her to succeed. But from a legal point of view and from a morality point of view, you can't just go around just killing people, because where does it end? You know, you'll end up like he says in Magnum Force, you'll end up killing somebody because a dog pissed on your lawn. So it has to have its limitations. Man's got to know his own limitations. So that was Sudden Impact. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. One of the rapists is like a woman.
Well, yeah, and that's something that we do see a lot of the time. Obviously, the legal definition of rape is a bit obviously tricky when it's a woman, but we know what we mean here anyway. But it's quite a brutal film. Is Sudden Impact. I think some of these movies were X-rated when they came out as well. That was Sudden Impact was one where he says, "Go ahead, make my day," doesn't he as well, which is pretty cool. And then finally, The Deadpool. Pretty much everyone's least favourite in this franchise, including my own. What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, one last thing on the previous one.
Yeah.
And it's also where they kind of experiment with a different gun instead of the 44 Magnum.
Yes.
But apparently it was such a piece of shit. Like,
oh yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Clint Eastwood absolutely despised it.
Yeah, from memory, we're going to talk.
Like, fuck this thing, and just like throw it in the water, and like some guy to go and recover it, and it's like, yeah, we're not doing this again.
yeah, because I think there's one of the Death Wish movies where the Charles Bronson character has, I don't know if it is the same gun, but a very similar gun, and yeah, it was an interesting one. I do actually have, this isn't a real gun, I'm going to be careful because I'm sat in the window if somebody sees this. I do actually have a air gun of the 44 Magnum as well, which is very nice. And it's made by Smith & Wesson, but as you can see, it's not real. These aren't real bullets. As you can see right through the thing there. You put pellets in that. But it's very nice, pretty cool. As a Dirty Harry fan, it is pretty cool. But yeah, interesting. So the Deadpool, that's one. It's got a very young Liam Neeson and Jim Carrey as well, and Guns N' Roses that have a cameo in the movie as well. Any thoughts on the Deadpool?
Well, I mean, I sympathise with the like murder victims in this because I too have been a victim of fucking Deadpool. Like, can you not just you know, kill yourself? It's getting up to New Year's Eve, and we need at least one person on my death list.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to know the story there, but what it is, I put the core
No,
on.
that is the story. You wanted me to die, you bastard.
No, there's more to it. I put the core on my celebrity death list because he's a celebrity. He's on YouTube. I put him on my celebrity death list one year, and he wasn't happy for some reason, and he survived.
I wasn't happy because you wanted me to die. Like, not just like, oh, you put me on the list. You're actually like, go on, God, just stop yourself. So I've got what?
Take one for the team. Go on. Right, anyway, I think we better leave it there anyway because we're running out of time. But yeah, the Deadpool, it's one of people's lesser favourites. And there's another sort of serial killer kind of situation going on. And there's talk about freedom of the press. That's one of the themes in this film. And I'd say give them all a watch. The Death Wish movies, similar sort of thing. We're going to talk about that next.